Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robinson is located here on Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Metis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Metis community of Roostertown. We are gathered here today for a really wonderful evening, which is why I'm so cognizant of the fact that I don't want to take up much of your time. So we'll move along to the actual interesting part of the evening right away. We are so thrilled that our friends at McClelland Stewart and Penguin Random House not only published the book we're celebrating tonight, but also made this event possible and ensured that Bryan Trottier could come visit us as part of this tour. We are here naturally to celebrate All Roads Home, a life on and off the ice with Bryan Trottier, which you may applaud for if you'd like. Now, of course, Bryan has had an incredible career, and we're going to be hearing all about that momentarily. Just a few quick housekeeping notes before we begin, which I realize is always everybody's favorite part of an event, and then we'll get to the main event. So there'll be a conversation that'll take place to my left between our host, David McLeod, and Bryan Trottier. I'll be telling you a little bit about them both in a second. Following that, there'll be an opportunity for you folks to ask questions. Now, when it comes to the Q&A, just to ensure that everybody can actually hear the questions and to ensure that they remain relatively succinct, I'll ask you to ask me the question, which I'll repeat into the microphone. This just means that any public questions we ask actually be questions and relatively short because my memory is shot. You rest assured, once we actually get to the signing portion of the event, you'll be able to talk to Bryan a little bit more at length. And at the end of this event, I'll have some more notes about signing procedure, some of which some of you fine folks have already suffered through. Now, when it comes to those watching online, if you have any questions for Bryan, please just feel free to write them in the YouTube chat and we'll put them to him as time permits. Now, in 2017, Bryan Trottier was voted one of the 100 greatest NHL players in history. He was born in Val Marie, Saskatchewan, the son of a Cree, Chippewa, Metis father and an Irish-Canadian mother, and went on to win 7 Stanley Cups, 4 with the New York Islanders, 2 with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and 1 as an assistant coach with the Colorado Avalanche. He lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but we're thrilled that he's here with us tonight. This is one of those moments where I feel completely superfluous telling you about Bryan Trottier, as if none of you folks know. Now, our host for this evening, David McLeod, works in media at NCI-FM, a provincial radio network. He is also the executive producer of the Indigenous Music Countdown, which is syndicated across Canada, including Sirius XM. He is a board member with the Winnipeg International Writers Festival and APTN. David's writing has appeared in various anthologies, such as CD2, Prairie Fire, and Manitowoc. He is a member of the Pine Creek First Nation in Manitoba, and one of our favorite people. So we're completely thrilled that he's here to host the event. Please join me in giving a huge welcome to Bryan Trottier and David McLeod.
Wow, that was an incredible.
That was
welcome.
fantastic. I loved it. Oh my God.
I feel like I'm a roadie at your show or something.
I know I'm walking to Jets country, but I'm going to a hockey fan. They don't. It's really wonderful to be always coming to Winnipeg. It's always a highlight for all the hockey teams. I played junior hockey here back in the early 70s, and when we got NHL hockey here, it was just fantastic because you come in, the atmosphere was always electric. Very dynamic city. But pleasure to be back here again, guys. Thank you. I see some Islander jerseys in the crowd. Warming my blood here. This is good.
How many people have seen Bryan play on the ice? Check it out. Wow.
Thank God for YouTube. kind of keeps me generational.
Well, Bryan, thanks for, as we heard, you live in Pittsburgh and you made your way here to Winnipeg. So we appreciate you taking the time to come and visit us. And we're thrilled and excited that you've taken the time to write this book. And I know it's, I think it's about 40 years, people have been asking you, Bryan, when are you going to write a book? and you did. So so thank you for putting this together. I have to say, when you read the book, the first like 100 pages are not about hockey. The first 100 pages, a little bit about hockey, but a lot of it is about where you grew up, your family connection.
Yes.
So, but was that what instigated you to say, I got to write this book to not just talk about hockey, but to share my life?
Well, there's the really wonderful thing about COVID was where I am in life is I'm not as guarded anymore. When you're playing hockey and the reporters are always asking you, what are you thinking on that ice? You don't want to give them all away your secrets. So you kind of like keep all your secrets. We got to give them the general answers that everybody gives to the newspapers and the media. But when I was coaching after that, everybody's like, so what's your strategy going to be tonight? I'm like, well, I can't really tell you, but now I'm out of hockey, and I think I want to influence. There's so many positive things that happened in my life, and so many people that made a difference. And the stories, when I go around to Native communities, I'm telling the kids in schools and telling them my stories, or I'm going to do speeches for fundraisers. Everybody likes the stories. And they'd say, why don't you write a book? And more so in the last few years, in the last 10 years, especially, as I got out more, COVID kind of slowed things down. But I said, you know what? Maybe I'll put down some of these stories on paper. And my daughter's a journalism major, and she read some. She goes, oh, Dad, this is so great. And she's my daughter, so of course she's going to say it. So anyway, it just kind of happened. And then we had one fellow who put together a little thing, and we got Stephen Brutt involved, and he kind of pulled more stories out of me, and it was really kind of fun how the whole thing came together. The manuscript was really thick, and we had to condense it down to.
Was it 1,400 pages?
It was thick. I had to read it a lot, and so it was really kind of I call it my labor of joy to a degree, because there's so many stories in there that I got to share about my family, my community of Val Marie, where I come from in Canada, my Canadian roots, all my buds, just some really kind of accomplishments that happened along the way throughout your life, not just your hockey career. And kind of a great tribute to Mom and Dad, I think, because we reflect where we come from. I think, my Canadian roots, obviously Val Marie, my little hometown of Mom and Dad, and, obviously your grandparents and your background and all that stuff. So it was really kind of an accumulation of a whole bunch of fun stuff that just kind of like, felt good.
Let's touch on some of that. Like, you're 8 years old, you're watching hockey, NHL games on, it's on the screen. I imagine it's a black and white TV.
Yeah, snowy black and white. Yeah.
You're out
Antennas, rabbit ears.
Yeah. So you're watching this game, and what happens?
Montreal wins the Stanley Cup. And they hand the shiniest cup I've ever seen on TV, even on that snowy black and white TV. And it looked so shiny. And the smiles of the Montreal Canadiens and Jean Beliveau, who's this handsome, tallest guy on the ice, and he's got the biggest smile. They hand it to him. He hugs it. He doesn't pump it up over his head like they did today. And they do more and more. But he hugged it. And then he lifted it. All the players were skating around after him. And I said, turn to Dad, and I go, I want to do that, just like Jean Beliveau. I want to win the Stanley Cup, just like Jean Beliveau. And he goes, well, you better start practicing, because we lived out about 3 or 4 miles from town. And the only thing we had was a little creek outside. And we had skated on that creek for a few years, but I didn't play hockey. We didn't have minor hockey in Val Marie. So, of course, Dad's showing me how to do everything on the ice righty, because he's a right-handed shot. So I was learning everything, that stick handle righty. But when it comes to shooting, it felt more comfortable to do this. Lefty, and he'd get that top hand, get that left hand on top, and I'd flip it back around. So he put a makeshift board down on there, and I'd have to shoot at that board all the time. I said, practice. I go down in my running shoes, I go down with my skates. I just kept practicing. I went down there, cold feet, cold hands, and I spent a lot of time practicing. And going down to do the chores, I always had to stick by the front door. And in summertime, you stick handle a tennis ball. In the winter time, is a frozen horse turd. You got to use whatever's around, you know, to get working them skills. But no, it was a pretty powerful moment for me watching that Stanley Cup night. I said it was really something I really wanted to make a dream for me happen and play in the NHL and go after that Stanley Cup.
So you're 8 years old. You're practicing. When that first step into a team, very successful. When you did start playing, did it come right away for you, or did you feel that, you know, because your strengths as a hockey player, did it show right away, or did that come later?
I think like all of us, I think when you love sports, hockey is just kind of a natural thing for Canadian youth. They just kind of take to it really because everybody loves it. Like all my buddies like playing it. We all thought we were going to the NHL. We had 4 or 5 guys my age, and we had to bring up younger kids because we live in a really small community. There was only like maybe 350 people in town, and then all the rural area would come down. So you'd have maybe 500-600 people. And the kids that were my age that played hockey, there's like 4 or 5 of us, and we got a couple kids older and then a few kids younger, and we made a team. And we got our butts kicked, but we were playing hockey. You know, we went to tournaments. We played 2 games, 3 games some days on a Saturday, and we were just loving it. I think I found myself being one of the better players in our little town because I just love sports. I was a good little runner. I had stamina. I had pretty good agility, and I'd been skating for a year and a half, 2 years. And you know, when you're skating on a frozen creek, that's about maybe as wide as that little space over there, 12 to 15 feet. And you got frozen twigs in there, and you got dead cows frozen in the water. You know, maybe a fence post over there, and you're skating around all this stuff. You think every kid in Canada is playing. Like, this is how you learn how to skate. And you know, and what's really kind of cool is just right beside our house is a beaver dam, and Dad would chop the beaver dam. We'd get fresh water. So it was like flooding the ice. We're like, God, this is great. You know, like every kid in Canada gets fresh ice. It's like a Zamboni, way better than a Zamboni. You chop it at night. We go out there the next day, we smooth this, and it was so cool to learn that way. So yeah, I had confidence, and I loved anything that had competition, and hockey was that vehicle. And I said, but summertime, baseball and, you know, basketball, volleyball with your buddies. And, yeah, it was just the kind of a sports combined community. But yeah, as soon as the ice froze, we were hockey.
You know, at the beginning of your book, in the foreword, what you're saying kind of alludes to this. Métis author Jesse Thistle says, the national dream for any kid is to play in the NHL. And what you did is offered hope to other kids. He said you're the GOAT as an Indigenous athlete, and being humble is a teaching within the Indigenous community. And that you are one of the most successful players, but your family also has a history of being buffalo hunters.
Yeah.
And illustrious and well known for.
Yeah.
And he makes the analogy that connection to the land is part of what drove your success to become a hockey player.
Well, Jesse, like, he blew it out of the water with the forward. Like, it's a beautiful forward, and how he put the whole thing together, the history of our family, how he tied into the land, and the Saskatchewan blue sky. I mean, as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my God, Jesse, this is like exactly how it was out in Saskatchewan. And that he nailed it with my great-grandfather, Patrice, who was a buffalo hunter. He nailed it with the fact that they were wealthy. They had lots of land. They had 4 or 5 homes, and it was all along Lake Peltier, North Battleford, this South Saskatchewan River, and then our homestead. And I said, where is all this land that apparently, but you know, it was gone because for whatever, you know, the kids sold it, or just generations of, you know, whatever. And a little bit sad that, but I said to myself, you know, it's wonderful that he put it all together in that wonderful forward. Yeah, he did a spectacular job.
And it just spoke to you, like the beaver dam, the water coming out and playing hockey on there. Like, you can't get any more like Canadian than that.
No, it's very iconic. Yep. It was this songwriter out in Newfoundland or New Brunswick. He said, how iconically Canadian that a father would chop a beaver dam for a future Hall of Famer to make ice so he could skate, learn how to skate.
So you're a teenager, you're playing hockey, and if you could share a little bit about that, because I mean, there's newspaper clippings that show you as a kid and playing with some of your rise to fame, and you're actually on the team with some other people that wound up becoming hockey players themselves, and a coach as well. If you could share a little bit about that.
Well, our little part of Southwest Saskatchewan, like we had my uncles were fantastic hockey players. Dad was a very good hockey player. And there's lots of players that were as good or better. And so there was a great competition out there, and we all aspired to be like our local heroes, which were relatives and local farmers that were just great athletes. And so we emulated them to a degree, but we watched Hockey Night in Canada. And we all thought, okay, I'm playing for Toronto, I'm playing for Montreal, I'm playing for Detroit. That was our childhood dream. So I played with, Claude Jensen, who could stick handle, but when he was a good skater, but he couldn't do both at the same time. He could stick handle, but his feet would stop moving. Dad was the coach. Jensen, move your legs. And Bernie Saran, who was just he was small, but he was fast. I thought, well, if I could skate like Bernie and stick handle like Claude, I'm going to make it somewhere. But we had this one guy who lived in my mom's hometown, Willie Disjardins, who was, if you recognize the name, he coached in the NHL for quite a few years, and he's coaching in Medicine Hat, and he's just a wonderful, brilliant hockey coach. But he was my Mike Bossy before I had Mike Bossy. This guy could score goals, and he could pass. And there was no bad passes when you played with Willie. So I had those kind of players to play with growing up, which elevates your game, gives you a little more confidence. Then when you go to tournaments and you see other kids playing, and we're playing against older kids, you have to play hard. Mm-hmm. So I was a defenseman, getting lots of ice time and developmental time, jump up on board once in a while, try to score a few goals, go back and play D. So I'd play I think we were playing something like 45-minute games and 15-minute periods, 3 15-minute periods. I'd probably play 40 minutes of a game, get on the bench, sit down, and Dad said, rest fast. I'm like, I don't know how to rest fast. I'm really faster here. Get back out there. Rest. Yeah. But it was just like that, the fact that you're on the ice all the time, those developmental years. Then a teenager, talk about teenage years. So then all my buddies, some move away, some stop playing hockey. And like Jensen moves here to Winnipeg for a while. Now he's over in Toronto. Bernie moves to Fort McMurray, Lethbridge, and then Fort McMurray. So guys are dispersing. Willie goes to Moose Jaw, plays junior hockey at age 14. I was at that camp with him, and Dad broke his leg, so I went home. I would have played with Willie in Moose Jaw, hopefully, maybe that year, but we're playing against 18, 19-year-olds. And it was pretty intimidating. It was an intimidating time because these guys had beards and whiskers. And we're these two little kids. We had no whiskers or anything yet. But Willie was brave. Willie was more brazen than I was. He was fearless. And I was always kind of a little bit shy. But playing with those guys, I wanted to kind of help me. Anyway, so go to Swift Current, meet Tiger Williams. Now, Tiger Williams is like a dynamic personality. And he talked about fearless. He takes me under his wing. He says, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. And I'm like this little puppy following him. Okay, we're doing this. We're doing this. We're this. But he is massive, and I'm just growing still.
Why that connection to you? Because that came through in the book where, I mean, you're on the road, you're getting lonely, you're getting homesick like crazy. And you're at home and you're thinking about quitting.
Oh, yeah. Quitting wasn't fun. Like, it wasn't fun being homesick. I was only 70 miles from town. I thought it was the other side of the world. But when you're homesick and you're going home for Christmas and your mom's going to make all your favorite foods, that whole ride home, I'm like, I'm not going back to junior hockey. All it is a bunch of guys beating me up all the time. It's not hockey. I'm playing 4 or 5 minutes a game. Stan Dunn told me, this is going to be a tough year for you because you're only going to play a little bit. You're going to play fourth line. you're not a very good defenseman. I was like, what? I'm not a very good defenseman.
Whoa.
Well, what he meant was, and I took it the wrong way, but what he meant was I was very small. I was 5'6", playing against 6'2" guys, and I wasn't able to control these guys. I was fast enough, I was quick enough, I just wasn't strong enough. And he says, you're gonna play forward, you're not gonna play very much. And every time we got on, we were playing fourth line, you're playing against guys that are bigger and tougher than you. And yeah, somebody said the word goons. That's exactly, kind of feeling like you're playing against these menacing monsters, and they're just ragdolling me in. Going to school the next day with a fat lip and a black eye, and looked like you got beat up. Like I just felt like I was a Saskatchewan fence post. Somebody pounded it today.
It was like it reads like a scene out of a movie, though. So you're thinking about quitting.
I know.
You're at home.
I was
Tiger arrives. Tell us about, like, there's a storm outside.
I know.
He drives in. Tell us this story.
I hummed and hawed because I got home the night of the 23rd. Dad came and got me, and the whole ride home, I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm gonna stay home. I know Mom's gonna have all my favorite foods. I'll just go back and play hockey in Val Marie, maybe play a little senior hockey. It's gonna be fine. And back to the rhythm of school, my little hometown. Everything's gonna be great. I didn't tell Dad or Mom any of this. I was just thinking this. And we had a game in Swift Current on the 26th on Boxing Day, and Dad's talking, and we had to be back in Swift Current by noon. He goes, Dad, we got to get in the car. We got to get going. I'm like, no, I don't know, Dad. You feeling okay? No, I don't know. I just hummed and hawed all day. Finally, he just said, you're going back. And I said, oh, I don't know. The phone rings, and it's the coach, Stan Dunn. He goes, you okay? I said, oh, I don't know, Stan. He goes, well, practice tomorrow at 10:30. I was like, all right, good. I don't have to go back. You know, and then blizzard that night, 7 o'clock in the morning. Boom, boom, boom. Mom opens the door. I'm just getting up. I hear her say, Tiger, how are you? I get up. I'm like, what are you doing here? He goes, I come to get you. You're coming back. I said, I don't think so, Tiger. And Mom said, you want some breakfast? And they started talking like I wasn't even there. They're like, oh, how's the roads? Oh, the roads aren't that good. But more coffee? Oh, yeah. What kind of eggs you want? I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm really not going back. Tiger, you're going back. If I have to hog tie you, throw in that car. I said, I'm not going back. This is going to be interesting. And through this whole breakfast, I'm getting madder and madder. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. And then Dad just finally looked up and he goes, you know, you can always come home. And I don't know what that, but it hit me really. It just softened me. It's like, Dad, let's go home. Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm in that car going back to Swift Current with Tiger.
And it's a sports car.
It's a GTO with mag tires in the snowstorm. And we're slipping and sliding all over the road. We can't stop. There's people in the ditch. We can't even stop to help these people. And so we get there. We had passed Cadillacs about 30 miles, about the halfway point. Things lighten up a little bit. The road's nicer north of Cadillac anyway. And Tiger says, you know, I'm going to play left wing with you and for the rest of the year, and no one's going to touch you anymore. I went, yeah, right. That's exactly what happened. He played left wing. If people even looked at me, he beat the crap out of him. I'm like, what the heck was that all about? He goes, I owed that guy something. Like, really? He just looked at me the wrong way. But it was great having a big brother like Tiger Williams, and the guy who was like just a mentor, because he taught me how to grapple. He'd maul me after practice and taught me how to like take care of myself, twist the guy up, let him do all the work. And playing against those big guys wasn't scary anymore because I could like manage them a little bit better. But yeah, I had Tiger. He was awesome.
And that's what comes through in the book. It's like there's phases in your life, in your career, where people seem to show up and help you along the way, or you know, or prompt you to keep going. And that's, do you look back at your hockey career and you like that? I mean, obviously when you wrote this book, did that come to mind when you're putting this book together?
It wasn't how, but that's exactly what happened. It was like almost like an appreciation of opportunity that opened up, and somebody who made a difference in your life. That was either a mentor or coach, a friend, a teammate, buddy, somebody who was a big influence in such a positive way that helped you get to the next step. And when you're writing it, you don't think of it that, but you're like, oh God, that was pretty special. You know, that guy there. And oh my God, this guy, oh my God, look at that teacher over there. They might send me on my homework, you know. So I made mention of Lorna Crozier in the book because Lorna Crozier is, you know, one of Canada's most famous author poets. And she was my high school guidance teacher. And she's like, we're going to get you through school no matter what. And I was like, yep. But my brain was going, nope, I'm going to the NHL. School and hockey didn't jive. But she had my homework ready. She was always encouraging. She was my comp teacher, so she did all my writing, and she was really fun. So it was nice to be able to like just mention her a little bit, but it's really kind of neat. All these people that kind of come into your life, and it happens to all of us, any walk of life. These people that come into your life have a wonderful influence on you that kind of turn you this way or turn you that way, or this way. So it's really kind of a nice little tribute to them in a special way too.
One of your major junior games was around 1972. The Regina Pats with Swift Current at that time. And that was an interesting game because that was one of your first bigger games, right? And during that period?
We had great rivalries with Regina. So Swift Current, Regina, Saskatchewan, they were the Saskatchewan teams in the WHL at the time. So there was a big rivalry. Obviously, Swift Current was probably the smaller of the communities. Regina, the capital of Saskatchewan, a big city, and here's a little Swift Current competing with these big cities, so to speak. But Stan Dunn, our coach, he was a master. I give him a lot of credit because he'd scout all these little towns, all these little small towns that were kind of. And some of the bigger cities kind of stayed within the region. They go like maybe 50 miles, 100 miles, but Stan did all the little towns. And he'd come down to the southwest corner of Saskatchewan and watch us and come and speak to us at some of the banquets. And we're like, and to my dad, he was Stan the Man Dunn. And we're all like, ooh, he had a big gravelly voice, booming voice, but a sweetheart of a man.
It's like all these people it's like a movie waiting to happen. I know we're going to run out of time in no time here, but I got to ask you about first NHL game. What do you remember? What stands out for you?
There's two things. So my first NHL game was played in Kansas City. So Kansas City Scouts became the Colorado Rockies, which are now the New Jersey Devils. So my first game it was in Kansas City, a road game. So and I'm just so excited. But there's like 12 people in the stands in a building that holds 18,000. And you're really looking for that atmosphere of the NHL. You go up there and you're like step on the ice, jersey on, the Islander use a 19, best number in hockey, name on the back, Islander crest. I said, I had no idea, step on the ice, and there's just no noise. It's kind of like stepping on the ice for practice. And so the game was really kind of a nothing game, and that's about we tied 2-2. I don't think I played a lot. I played a little bit, had a couple, but I was just so excited to be on the ice, an NHL arena with my new jersey on. But the next game was a home game at Nassau Coliseum.
Oh, wow.
It was electric. Now I'm in my building, my new home arena, and our guys are all pumped up because and the place is packed. 15,000 people, 14,724 something. And it's like, so you step on the ice, it's just powerful. And you're jacked anyway, and all your teammates are jacked. You can't write the script. Early in the game, I'm playing with Billy Harris that night. He kicks it out to me. I step, first shot at the net, bang, goes through the defenseman's leg. Rogie Vachon playing against LA. Rogie Vachon doesn't see the puck. He's kind of screened on it. And it goes through the defenseman's leg, and it goes right here. I can see the puck go, and he kind of tries to squeeze it. And I didn't see the puck going, but I see all the people stand up here. And of course, I go nuts, tippy-toe dance. First NHL goal, right? And the guys jump in the net, grab the puck, toss it to the trainer. He puts NHL first goal. They put on a plaque. I ended up getting 2 more goals that night. One on a power play, one on a really nice little juicy rebound. Came back to me, and rather than go top shelf, I just kind of flipped it over the goalie because he was down. Rogie, poor Rogie. And I flipped it over, and Billy Harris gives me a hand. He's like, "Why didn't you roof that thing?" I said, "I didn't have to. I had to get over the goalie." But you're just a kid, but you learn after that. You really got so bear down. But it was really kind of cool. The whole thing was end up with a 5-point night, and so there's a media scrum, and the thing that made it frustrating is I was so excited, and here's all these media people asking me, so what were you thinking out there? I'm like, well, I can't tell you. Oh, it's called mom and dad. You know, can I get out of here? You know, like I want to tell them, but so that was that's the memory of that. That's just that first NHL game and the first home game. So they're like both pretty memorable.
And what are some of the names that were on the ice that you're like because you're watching hockey as a kid. Now you're on the ice and there's other players. So who are some names that were out there that where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm playing hockey with that guy?
The really cool thing is I went to the playoffs that spring when they were making that run. So I finished my junior career in Lethbridge. And when that season was over, the Islanders started playing against the Rangers, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. So I went and watched them play those games in the playoffs. And I watched the guys that were playing, Bobby Clark, Reggie Leach, Walt Kachuk and Pete Stemkowski and Brad Park. And I'm like, oh my God, I saw young Pierre LaRouche, who was drafted the same year as me. And I was jealous of Pierre because he was the same age. He got to play the whole year in the league. He's with Battleship Kelly and Jean Pronovo and Silas Jr. These guys are like bigger than life because I watched all these guys on TV. And I wanted to be out there, but I was ineligible. Plus, Dad had work at home. And he goes, come on, you've seen us hockey. Get your butt home. We got work to do. Which really kind of keeps you grounded, when your parents are always just like, hey, you're just a kid from Val Marie, relax. But it was all very, very exciting. So when the next year, when we're playing against LA, Rogie Vachon, Montreal Great Canadian, we were playing against Boston Bruins and Phyllis. I've taken a face-off against Phil Esposito, and I'm like, this is great. We go to Chicago. I take a face-off against Stan Mikita, and I beat him. Opening face-off, I beat Stan Mikita. Take that stick. Well, you know what Stan does? He takes a stick and does a Zora. Taking your face-off like this. All yours, Stan. Rest of the night. I used that trick for a long time.
There was no helmets at that time.
Well, Stan wore that big bubble helmet. And I was probably one of the only players on our team with the Islanders that wore a helmet because I came out of junior and I was elbow height. So when you're playing against Larry Robinson, who's like 6'3", and he goes to check you and you run into his elbow, you learn really quick, don't take that helmet off. That helmet's going to save your life. So no, I always wore a helmet. There was lots of guys, probably 90% of the league did not wear a helmet when I broke in.
And so
idiots.
So you're in the NHL and you're touring basically. I mean, you're on a circuit after that, and you're away from home even more. And what was that life on the road like, playing hockey?
It's really exciting. I was young. I was 19. Still very homesick, but calling home, and this is Mom's so fun. She'd say, call collect. I'm making X amount of dollars, and I guess making $100,000 that year, and I called home collect every time. Every time, like collect call from your son Brian. Yes, like will you accept charges? But I couldn't wait to call home all the time. Just tell them about what happened in the game because they were just waiting. There was no like internet or instant scores like they have today. So they'd wait for that phone call, and so it didn't matter what town I was in. As soon as I get back to the hotel, boom, I call home. Or sometimes I call right from the rink, just get a phone, collect call from Bryan Trottier. I'm on. But no, it was still tough, but it was so exciting, especially when you went into the original six, because those were like the old Olympia, the Montreal Forum, the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, the original say Boston Gardens, like, oh my God, this is like where Bobby Orr plays. There's just so much magic in those buildings, Gordie Howe, Olympia. Like I just walk around the building and say, oh my God, like the seats are like crimson red, it's just Montreal, the blue, blanc, rouge. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like everything just looked way better than you could ever imagine. Your imagination could take it.
There was a lot of talk about the Trio Grand, and what can you share about that? Because it's exceptional, 3 players all working together.
Well, we lost my buds, Clark Gillies, and I know that we've got some people in Winnipeg. Clark and Mike came out and we played a golf tournament. Clark is just a wonderful human being, Saskatchewan kid. And another big brother I had played left wing with me. And So when Mike came, Mike was just a goal scoring machine. And we lost him recently. It's tough to lose your linemen's friends and buds, but the guys that had the most success, and it took me a while. I still agree, but the really kind of the cool thing is that we honored them by speaking about them and remembering and talking about their memory, keeping their memory alive. At the same time, they'd be mad if I wasn't living life, if I didn't forge on and live life and have my, like, because they'd be doing the same. And I said, I love these guys, but we started off and all of a sudden it was just magic. Right towards the end of training camp, Al put us together and Mike scores 4 goals, 3 goals and 2 assists or something. We all have like a 4.9. And all of a sudden they're going to have a contest. Okay, let's name this new line of Gillies, Trottier, Boss. Clark stood up. Big Clark, 6'3", massive human being. Kind of looks like the Marlboro Man. Yeah? Stands up like John Wayne. He goes, "No, there's going to be no contest. Just call us the Trio Grande." The name stuck. Who's going to argue with that big monster? I said, I love that name, Clarky. And so, yeah, it was a great line. We had a lot of success. Played 10 years together, and of course, Mike scored 50 goals every year. But we had Clark Gillies on the left side, make sure nobody took liberties with us. Again, he was like a Tiger Williams for us. But Clarky was a powerful man. He was prototypical power forward of that generation before they even used the term power forward. He did everything great. He's like stick handle, pass, shoot, fight, forecheck, back check, anything you wanted. Clark was just a natural athlete and just a great hockey player. And then Mike, with his goal scoring, Mike was a great stick handler and a great passer and a deceptive hockey player, fast as anybody in the league. And it was really fun when we go back and kind of giggle about what the media would ask us questions like, "Well, Mike, you're such a great goal scorer. Bryan, you're such a good passer." And we're like, "Well, I like scoring goals too. And Mike's a pretty good pass." But we would never say that. We're like, yeah, Mike just likes to score. Yeah, I just like to pass. So you punch a couple goals in and you kind of catch everybody like, "Okay, go check Mike. Leave me open." But Mike was really good. It was wonderful having those two guys in line.
I'm glad you got to play tribute to them. Let's give them a round of applause. Later on in the book, you talk about your first NHL goal where you put your name on the puck.
Yep.
But you continued that though, right? Throughout some of your career.
It's kind of a hockey tradition. Whenever you get a milestone. So I have my first goal ever scored. Mom put tape on that one. And there's old Viceroy hockey puck. And she put Bryan's first goal on. And that's probably my favorite puck.
That's in the book where you talk about he talks about all the success he's had, but you noted that the first goal you had as a kid is the number one thing you recognize.
Yeah, because we played against Bracken. We've taken a couple lickings, but we're playing against Bracken. I'm playing defense, and Bernie, the good little stick handler skater, the smallest guy but fast as lightning. He passes out to Jensen, who's a good stick handler, good skater, but he can't do both, right? So he's stick handling in one spot, loses balance. Dad's screaming at him, "Move your skate!" When it falls down, but he's still stick handling. So I'm on the point. I come in, and I'm a righty. Remember, Dad made me a righty, and I naturally switched to lefty and said, "Jensen!" And from his butt, he sweeps the puck over to me and pass it, and just a kid adrenaline. I shot at the net and went right over the goal. The goalie's small, you're like 8, 9 years old, but it went over his shoulder, probably went halfway up the net, but like went up high. And I didn't even know how to. I just skated around. Guys are chasing me, trying to congratulate. I went back to my spot, and I don't even know how to celebrate. First goal ended up being the game winner. So I didn't know that. So Dad kept the puck and gives it to me on the way home. I looked at that puck all the way home. And like, "Oh, my first goal. Dad kept that puck. That's awesome." And so that puck meant something. That was like my first. And they Mom and Dad made a big deal out of it. Like, "Hey,
Where's that
Dad
puck?
never made me shoot righty anymore. They left me.
And where's that puck today?
It's actually, I could have brought it. It's in I carried it with me. Probably, I've carried it with Mom passed away in 2012. And it sat on her kitchen windowsill. And I saw it there. I'm like, Mom, get that puck all these years. I knew kind of where it was. I carry it in my bag all the time. I keep it with me. I've had it since 2012. I got a little, I call it my Mary Poppins bag. Anything I need, I just dig in this bag. But yeah, I carry it with me all the time. Carry some rings too.
Oh my gosh. And the we got to get the questions from everybody.
Yep.
How many questions do people have here? We probably have a few, right? Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we got some questions I'm going to get to. The fans, what was that like for you? Because you're coming from small town Saskatchewan, all of a sudden you have all these fans. How is that to deal with? Because that's not something you really prepare for. That just happens. Like you said, you get out on the ice and there's 20,000, 25,000 people, roaring when they hear your name.
It's special because like you love the audience, you love the noise. It was tough going into Philly, and they didn't say anything nice when we went into Philly. So you kind of have to shut them out a little bit. Billy Clement said Philadelphia is the only city that is beloved by one city and hated by everybody else. Well, actually, the same is true when you're the opposition coming into Philly. You are not like, but you kind of like, but you love the noise. You love, it pumps you up. Like your home crowd pumps you up. There's you recognize it as for what it is. They're not my fans. They're our fans. They're our Islander fans. They're hockey fans. They're appreciative of your skills. They love what you're doing because we can all relate, because we all kind of want to be that guy playing in the National Hockey League, or we want to be cheering for somebody they know who's playing in the National Hockey League. Because I asked my sisters, because they didn't play hockey. They were my goalie, but they didn't play hockey. I said, you guys didn't have a chance to play NHL. We love hockey. They just love the fact they could cheer for somebody who was in the NHL. My little hometown just loved cheering for me, even though I didn't play for the Maple Leafs. They cheer for me, and I think that makes you play a little harder. Plays you dig deeper because you're not just playing for you and your teammates. You're playing for those guys that are just urging you on and encouraging you. Win, lose, or draw, you're going to give them your best.
What do you think of the Toronto Maple Leafs today?
So I grew up a Leafs fan. I love the Leafs. They were my team. Dad and I were Maple Leafs. Jean Bell and the Montreal Canadiens were winning Stanley Cups. But Toronto was our team, like George Armstrong and Davey Keon. That was a huge George Armstrong fan. But my Jean Beliveau, Gordie Howe, Dad was to love Gordie Howe, Saskatchewan guy. Like we had our favorites, and I was no different. But the Maple Leafs, so when I stopped coaching and I stopped playing, I threw my Maple Leaf hat back on. I still cheer for them. I want them to do well because they haven't won for a while. It's kind of like Detroit hadn't won for like 50 years. Rangers hadn't won for 50. My Islanders are closing in on 50 years. So it's not an easy thing to do. So I cheer for the Toronto team. I cheer for the Canadian teams in the sense Ottawa hasn't won it. We want to see our Canadian teams do well. Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton's got McDavid. Mike Bossy called him the fastest human being he's ever seen in a pair of skates, and he is. So yeah, we want our Canadian teams to do well. I'm pulling for our Maple Leafs. They got Matthews, and so yeah, good luck to them. I hope they do well.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, that's positive.
Everything's positive.
So around 1996, you went into coaching after the retirement.
Yep.
From playing the game. We're going to get the question soon. But what was that like? Like, what was that point where you go, okay, it's time to retire from the game? What was
tough? It took a long time. Like it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go. You're not competing anymore. You still get the adrenaline, you get the rush, you get prepared, but you get to prepare the players. Probably it took me I'd say a good 5-6 years to get it out of my system to where I wasn't anticipating get on the ice. I was done. I was like, okay, I can just concentrate on being a coach and get. And now you're really kind of influencing again. You're trying to give all this experience to the next generation of hockey player, and these guys are just so eager to learn, and even the veterans. So when you're coaching guys like Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg, they are. You tell them once and it's in the computer. Chris Drury, young kid in Colorado, Alex Tongay and Milan Hayduk, young kids that are just so eager to become champions. So when that happened in Colorado, the appreciation factor I had for them, because they were out in the trenches, I didn't bleed, I didn't get bruised, I wasn't blocking shots, didn't score a goal. You have a great appreciation for what they just went through in a battle, and they're coming up and thanking me. Mm-hmm. Thanks for all you did. I'm like, wow. But you kind of say, you're welcome, because it goes both ways. And it's really kind of a sense of satisfaction that you can find a way to contribute to a team and have a championship as a coach. When you raise that cup, it doesn't matter if you're wearing a jersey or a tie, man, it feels pretty darn good.
What was your favorite moment of holding that cup? Because you've held it a few times. Which one is that you hold first?
It's like picking your favorite child. Like, you do it 7, but I have 7 children. Like, but I think the best way I can describe it, Ken Dryden, he said, you only be a champion for the first time once. And that feeling of being champion the first time is like the first kiss, like you remember that first kiss, like it's the championship is like, I got to be Jean Beliveau. I got to go hug it. I got to feel the names that were engraved on it. I could feel how cool it was to touch. I got to lift it, how heavy it is. You feel like a weightlifter. And when you pump it up over your head, the noise that comes down surrounds you. Your teammates are cheering. The place is going crazy. And you're like pumped. That is like an experience you can't really express in words. And people say, "We love you." I said, "I love you too," because you're trying to like express your joy, and it's just over the top. And I don't know. I'd probably say the first one for that reason. I mean, beating the guys that we beat in the finals and how we got there was kind of special. I think the fourth one in New York was beat Oilers 4 straight. Was they were on the cusp of something, was pretty special. To wait 8 years and win the first one in Pittsburgh back to back was pretty special, and celebrated that crazy city. Oh my God, they know how to celebrate a championship. But I thought we partied hard in New York. Those crazy people in Pittsburgh, man. I didn't see the sun for 3 days. I didn't get home for 3 days. They have too many bridges. We kept partying under another bridge. It was a fun city. Yeah.
So which jersey do you wear at home?
Well, now we wear our alumni jerseys. We get to throw an alumni jersey out every once in a while. So yeah, throw an Islander jersey on once in a while, Penguin jersey on. We have an Aboriginal alumni team. We throw that jersey on. We get around to a lot of different places, and we represent the NHL and our years in the NHL and our teams that we played for. And I'm really proud of our NHL guys because of that, because we're all ambassadors.
You know what? And I have to say that you've been an incredible ambassador, because I mean, we live in a social media age where you can come out and say whatever you want and put it out there. But I mean, you are a class act in terms of carrying the what hockey is really supposed to be about. Yeah.
Well, I think what's really kind of fun for me is there are moments I think we all are not our proudest moments, but for me, I always think of my mom. Like, if you say something, make sure it's you're not going to regret it. Try to take those words and try to not say them. Once you say them, you don't think twice about it, but treat people how you want to be treated and that kind of stuff. And Dad was pretty honest, and I like those things about my parents. I think you want to reflect those values more than anything else.
And I'm just going to ask you one last question before we get to questions from the audience. In 1998, you received the National Aboriginal Achievement Award in the sports category.
Yeah.
And I know you've received so many awards. There's a long list of them. But in terms of your connection to the Indigenous community, what did that mean for you?
Well, it represented, I think, a pride that we all have in our heritage. I think we all carry a certain pride. It doesn't matter what our ethnic backgrounds are. I think all of us have blood that we want to be able to, like, everybody to, you know, not just look at us, but to say, wow, you know, there goes a good kid. You know, that there goes a good guy. And I think when the Indigenous community kind of recognized some of my accomplishments and some of my community accomplishments, some of the stuff that I was doing off the ice as much as on the ice, it really kind of brought, I think it made me reflect and remember my grandparents, you know, a lot of their culture, that a lot of the fun we had, the laughter, you know, hunting, you know, just love of nature, love of animals, music, all those things. That's what it really represented for me. You know, my Irish heritage, I was as proud. My mom was as proud that I won that award as any award that I won. She's Irish, and she made us proud to be, you know, Native. And I really, that's what it meant to me, like all that pride that was in all of us, doesn't matter what our ethnic.
And some of the incredible Indigenous hockey players you've met over the years too, from, you know, if you maybe share a few names.
Well, it's really kind of cool. So Freddie Saskatchewan he broke the barrier. He was Moose Jaw. And I heard so many stories about Freddie from my dad, because dad watched him play. I had a sister born in Moose Jaw, so dad saw Freddie was like 1958, 59, and went on to Chicago. And like a lot of us, got homesick, went back to his home. You know, his hockey career in the NHL was short, but not the impression he left on all of us. You know, he was a mountain. He was a 5'6", 5'7", Freddie, but he was a mountain of a man to all of us because he broke the barrier. We watched George Armstrong on TV. We got to meet George. We watched Jimmy Nielsen with the Rangers, and we got to meet these guys and thank them for being an inspiration to us. And you know, they're all good, humble guys. Yeah, no problem. But it's a powerful moment for all of us to meet players that have broken barriers, that have succeeded and made a career and played at the greatest level that there is on the globe.
Let's give them a round of applause. Right. Getting a signal from John here. We've got to get some questions, and we have at least 5 questions to do. Do we have any questions?
Yes, indeed. And just as a reminder, I'll just ask you to ask me the question. I'll repeat it into the mic just so people can hear it.
John's doing the Phil Donahue right now.
All right.
Which goalie did you enjoy playing against in your career, and what goalie did you hate playing against?
I like the friendly goalies that let me score. So my sister was recruited, and I make fun of my sisters because they're my sisters, but they're good athletes, and they were good goalies, but they were kind of terrible goalies, but they were really good. So my sister got recruited to play on the all-girls team. They were like, I think she was like 28 or 29 at the time, and she's a really good athlete. She ended up being the leading scorer in the team. And they said, Kathy, how did you score all those goals? She goes, it's real easy. I just close my eyes and shoot it as hard at the goalie. If it goes through him, it's the goalie's fault. I said, I did that 524 times. Just close my eyes, terrific goal. Those are my favorite goals. The toughest goalies were big goalies. Ken Dryden, John Davidson. Even on their knees, they covered the top part of the net. So for me, that was a little tougher. I really enjoyed playing against butterfly goaltenders. So early Tony Esposito, Chico Resch was our butterfly on our team. So it was fun shooting against Chico because they went down their knees and opened up the top part of the net. So I use this term a lot. You guys can, I don't mind sharing it now because this is some part of my strategy, is I'm a neck and ears. I always shoot at neck and ears because it's not natural for a guy to throw his head in front of a shot. They always want to duck it. So when I shot at the goalie, it was neck and ears. But shoot against a big goalie, you're shooting over the net. So the shorter butterfly goalies were my kind of goalies.
You're coaching everybody here
I
tonight.
tell you, you can steal it. That's what I do. I steal it.
Another question for you.
Who was your toughest face-off opponent?
God, I had some fun ones. Daryl Sittler, without a doubt, was my toughest. The toughest centerman I played against was Daryl Sittler. So when I came in the league in '75, Daryl was 2 or 3 years in the league, and he was a stud for Toronto Maple Leafs. And he was a 60-minute guy. So he played both ends of the ice. He was physical. It was a battle, and I loved playing against him because I was exhausted at the end of the games. Every face-off meant something. Like, it didn't matter if it was neutral zone, defensive zone, offensive zone, power play. Every face-off was a battle. So Daryl, without a doubt, was my greatest nemesis, if you can call it that, to play against head-to-head. You know, like Mess, he was a bull. Mark Bessie, tough guy to play against. But you know, the skill guys like Mario and Steve Yzerman and Gilbert Perreault were just wonderful to play against because it's going to be a skating game. You have to skate your legs off. Not a lot of battle. But it's going to be a wonderful game. Yeah, I enjoyed those too. The toughest guy I ever played against, and this is the toughest, not just centerman, was Larry Robinson, because Larry's a gentle giant, and he's so strong and powerful and tall and long, and you can't get around the guy. Like, he's just like a long reach, and he's so gentle, but he's so strong. And he'd take me out in the corner and then lift me up in the air. So my feet would be dangling off the ice. I'd be pressed against the glass. I'm sure everybody on the other side of the glass laughed because my face was brushed up there. And I couldn't move till he let me go. And then when he let you go, he'd be so nice about it. He'd go, "There you go, little guy." I'm like, "Oh, little guy." But he made me mad. Like, he's maddening to play against, but it's such a great guy off the ice. Like, you know, it's hard to hate that guy, but he's one of those guys you hate because he's just too damn good.
John, oh, beautiful lady right here had a question.
Bryan, could you tell us a little bit about your first NHL contract and whether or not that's in the book?
Oh my God, one of my favorite stories. Anyway, so I'm drafted by the New York Islanders, and I got a contract with WHA Cincinnati Stingers, and they pull a contract, but the Islanders don't know it. And Bill Torrey, the general manager, calls me up and he goes, "Come to Montreal, I have a contract for you." I said, "I'm only 17. I don't turn 18 until July. And this is in June." He says, "Well, tell your mom and dad, we've got 3 first-class tickets to Montreal, and I'm going to meet you there, and we're going to offer you a contract." Well, I'm so excited. This is going to be great. "Mom, Dad, we're going to Montreal, first-class tickets." Mom and Dad had never been on a plane. And I'm like, this is all so exciting. Clark Gillies is the first-round draft choice. I'm the second-round draft choice. Clark Gillies on the plane. He's sitting in the back, you know, second class with Earl Ingerfield. And I'm jealous that he's sitting next to Earl Ingerfield. He's jealous that I'm in first class and he's a first-round draft pick. We laughed about it years later. And so on the way to Montreal, we're sitting in first class, and Dad looks at me and goes, "Now remember, whatever they offer you, we're going home to think about it, because the second offer is going to be way better than the first offer." This is all in the book. This is a fun story. And so it is in the book. And what's really kind of fun was, all right, we got a plan. We're going home to think about it. What halfway there, what I realized is that first class, free booze. Mom and Dad get blitzed. They're bombed. We get off the plane, and mom, and she's giggling. She's laughing. "Oh, I'm so drunk." Well, so this is how fast it happens. We get off the plane, down the escalator, into the car, down to my agent's office in Montreal, up the elevator, and there's Bill Torrey in the bow tie. And Mom and Dad are still trying to shake off the cobwebs. Remember, we got a plan. We're going to think about it. Bill Torrey meets us, and he goes, "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Trottier," and turns all his attention to me. He goes, "Bryan, we got a 5-year deal for you, $100,000, $110,000, $125,000, $150,000, $250,000 signing bonus, and a car of your choice." My dad goes, "Where's the pen?" Because he has to sign the contract because I'm 17. I'm like, "What about the plan?" He goes, they're crazy enough to pay that much money. But yeah, that's how it all happened. Then he turned to me and they're like, so what kind of car do you want? I'm like, I never gave any thought about a car. But I'm looking at my mom and dad. And I thought, Dad needs a big car. I said, oh, the biggest car I know at the time was like the Chrysler New Yorker. I said, Chrysler New Yorker. You know, they're probably thinking sports car, Mercedes-Benz, Ferrari. No, I come up with the Chrysler New Yorker. Anyway, toss mom and dad the keys and say, here you go. So I come home after the first year. And the car's gone. I go, Dad, what happened to the car? I can't fit all my instruments. I traded in for the 68 van, Ford van. I'm like, oh my God, that brand new Chrysler. Oh, well, it's your car. You can carry it on. Dad's a horse trader. Yeah, he got his instruments in. Thank you for asking. That's great.
And we have time for 2 more questions. So right over there and right over there.
Okay.
Okay, I got 2-parter for you. So one is, one of your teammates, Swift Current, had a Winnipeg connection. I know we didn't talk about the Jets at all, but this is not a Toronto Maple Leafs story or a question. But Terry Ruskowski was one of your teammates.
Yes.
He played here for a year, helping in Africa Cup.
Yep.
Was a captain on 4 different teams, professional teams. So I wonder if you had a favorite story about him. And also, we're in Winnipeg. There was a Saskatchewan Bill a couple months ago, or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. But Howard Chuck, I'm wondering, you've been asked about favorite guys you played against. So what if you have a favorite memory about playing against Howard Chuck?
I do. I have a story about Terry Ruskowski. So Terry was our captain in Swift Current. Terry was 5'8" and just fearless. And we're going to play the Medicine Hat Tigers. Now the Medicine Hat Tigers, Lanny McDonald's old team in junior. And we're going in there. We got Tiger Williams, Terry Ruskowski, Brian Back. They're our 3 toughest guys. And me, who was 16 at the time. And I'm getting like 3 or 4 minutes of ice time. There is a bench clearing brawl. And everybody's fighting. And I'm going up against a guy who's, I bumped earlier in the game. His name is Jim McCrimmon. His nickname is Man Mountain McCrimmon. And he looks like Mr. T with orange hair. And he's making these noises like T-Rex coming after me. And I'm like, I'm backing up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in my first fight in junior hockey. And everybody's fighting. Terry is fighting their toughest guy, again, a guy named Bob Gassoff. Now, Bob Gassoff was drafted first overall by St. Louis Blues just because he was tough and mean and scary. And if you came down the ice with your stick handling and you're going to try to go around Bob Gassoff, he didn't even go after the puck. He put the stick right in your face. And you just go, oh, I'm going to dump this one in. But Terry's fighting him. And they're going toe to toe. And he was fearless. He took on their toughest guy. I got thumped by Jimmy McCrimmon. Tigers fighting, I can't remember who. I said to myself, I am forever a Terry Ruskowski fan, because at the very end of it, he came up to me, and I don't know how Jim McCrimmon got cut, but there's a little trickle of blood coming from Jimmy McCrimmon's eyebrow. And he looks at me, good fight, kid. You really gave it to Man Mountain McCrimmon. I said, you've been fighting Bob Gassoff for 5 minutes over there. You see this guy thump me. They probably clawed him off me and ripped his eyebrow trying to get him off me. And you go, good fight, kid. You really gave it to them. So I love Terry for a whole bunch of, we're good buds today. We talk all the time. Dale Howardchuk, we come in here, and Dale is a one-man show. Like, yeah, they've got Thomas Verdeen, they've got McLean, they've got guys that are scoring goals. We're trying to contain Dale Howardchuk. That's all we're trying to do, because if we keep Dale up, we'll keep the score kind of down. And they are run and gun hockey. I mean, it's back and forth. It's like playing the Oilers times 2. They just love to skate. Dale was probably in the league of his own. He's probably the Gilbert Perreault of the Winnipeg Jets. Stick handle, skate, score, juke, dive, deke, feint, fake. I marveled Dale. I loved Dale for a whole bunch of reasons, because he's a purist. He played the game hard, never backed down from the rough going. So you're talking to a big Dale Howardchuk fan. So yeah, I believe he believes that he should be in the top 100 for sure, in my book, hands down. And gone too early also. But I got to speak to him. So I called him for like about 2 weeks. So we got word that Dale was not doing good. He was fighting. So, and he actually thought he had gotten over the cancer. And we're all cheering and having a good, and all of a sudden he's going downhill. So I called him up and I left a message. I said, I couldn't get him on the phone. I said, Dale, it's Bryan. I said, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for a whole bunch of things. Call me back 5 minutes later. He goes, I'm not taking calls, Bryan, but I just want to say that was a great message. I said, Dale, I want to thank you for being not only a great guy on the ice, one of the best players I've ever played against, but for being one of the greatest people and being a friend that we can all just admire, talk about for forever, because he's just the greatest guy.
Okay, so we're just going to go to the final question right now. And then after that, we're going to get Bryan actually situated at the signing table. So I'm just going to humbly ask all you folks to please just remain in place for one moment so we can actually have the person who will be signing books in place to sign those books. And you'll have to put up with me for a little bit longer too. Yes.
Great jersey. Wrong number, but great jersey. Fitz, yeah, great goalie, stingy goalie. Yeah.
So I just got a question about, can you talk a little bit about like when you knew you made it, like did you expect to come in and tear the league up, or did you kind of surprise yourself?
Oh God, yeah, that like I talk about that a little bit in the book. So like the one thing Dad taught me early is like, don't ever get satisfied. Don't ever stop wanting. You got to always want something. The minute you stop wanting, you die. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to want something for long. Never get satisfied. That was the message I got. And I was like, holy cow. So no, I never walked into that camp thinking I got it made. I didn't want to get outworked. I wanted to make sure somebody noticed me. I wanted to make sure that every year, nobody's going to outwork me. And no one's going to out hustle me. No one's going to muscle me on a puck. I was going to bat. It's a battle. And you have to maintain that intensity in your own brain. Otherwise you just get complacent. And I didn't ever want that to happen. So no, I never took it for granted. Even when we'd won the league championship a couple years in more like 78, and then Toronto knocked us off, those creeps. And then 79, we won the league champion, and the Rangers come along, those creeps, and they knock us off. We're going to. So even though we won a trophy, the league championship, and even though I won the scoring championship, and they gave me the MVP, I didn't want. That was great. It was wonderful. Believe me, I love my teammates for all those things. Those trophies are special. I want that Stanley Cup. And then when you have that Stanley Cup, you want it back. And then you want that feeling again and again. And once you're satisfied, you're dead. That's how I believe. I thought Dad's right. You can't take it for granted. But yeah, no, I never thought I was ever going to tear it up. But never took anything for granted. Wanted to contribute, wanted to find a way to contribute to a team win. That was kind of my bottom line. Score a goal, get an assist, block a shot, find a way, don't get outworked, outwork the other team, and leave the game exhausted. That's kind of my mantra, but yeah, great question. Thank you. That's a good one to end on. Guys, we're going to do some autographs here, guys. Thank you all for coming. It's spectacular group.
Thank you so much for coming to again.
Always, I love to sing. Yeah, but I just got a couple more things I do want to share. This is a great book. Like we got this book put together, and my team is here, and we worked on this, and we spent a lot of time on this, and we did it through COVID. It wasn't easy. And it's kind of like winning a Stanley Cup. If something's too easy, it's not fun. This was fun. And how it came together at the very end, the final edit, I called it. You can ask my team. I almost cried. I was reading this book. I've read it 3 times. Now I just opened up a book. I've opened up this. I'm like, oh, I love this part. Because I know the book forward and backwards now. And it's a good read. I'm so proud of it. I not only think it's going to be we're coming up to Christmas. I don't think it's just a Christmas gift. I think it's kind of a tribute to my parents, but it's a tribute to Canada. And I think what we share is love of hockey and a big part of our fabric, which is the culture of hockey, but it's where we grew up, the values and principles that we all have here as proud Canadians. That's why it's all roads home, because every time I come to Canada, I think I'm back home. So pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's rise and shine for Bryan.
All right.
Thank you all so much. So just as Bryan gets set at the table, just a few quick notes about the signing itself. It'll take place at a desk just beside our cash desk, so please go there. There's a line that's already starting to form, so just join in there. Just wait for one moment because there are a few details I have to go over. Somebody will come down the line and write your name on a Post-it note and plop it inside the book. This is just to ensure you can spend more time chatting when you get to the table rather than spelling. If you'd like a picture, that's perfectly all right. Just have your phone out and ready to go. One of my colleagues will be right across and be able to take the picture for you. This store is closed right now, but we're staying open for you folks just to ensure you can get books signed. If you can't stick around, there are signed copies of the book that Bryan has kindly signed already available at the cash desk. So just pop up there, they'll help you out. Feel free to get a copy of the book signed before you pay for it. Please do pay for the book at some point tonight. We really appreciate that. We're so thrilled you could join us here and online. Thank you so much to David McLeod. Thank you so much to McClelland Stewart, Penguin Random House, to all of you, and to Bryan Trottier. Have a great night.